Greetings, welcome to day 4 of the Autoforge development. So let's try to remember what we actually worked on. The days just kind of start blurring together after a while. So we've been trying to get this entity component system converted over to be a component-based system. And one of the big last remaining things that we're needing to try to figure out is how do we want the systems to work? How are they updated and managed? And where is the kind of like system-y data stored? Because before in our entity component system, we had it so that our systems were purely namespaces with functions. And all of the data was being stored in what I was calling a world component, which we still kind of have laying around here. And so this world component, each one of these world components would be created and stored within a map in the world. And the world would be passed around, and anytime a system needed to access any data, it would just get access to the world component. And it would store any data that it needed to within that. So the entity layers, which tracks where entities are being stored, and that's what the render system uses whenever it's rendering all the entities, that was stored within a world component. In this new world, with the component-based system, we needed to change that so the entity layer data was being stored in somewhere. I decided the best place to put it is right where we have our system. So now, and this is still being worked on, but we kind of just trying to figure out how we want it to work. We have an entity layer system, and that will get entities and components whenever they're being made and update it. Right now I think it's once per frame, once per render frame. And then we have our actual data being stored here in the entities and in layers. And so if we look at update, we'll see that we have all of our layers. And somewhere, oh yeah, the entities, that's where we store the entities. Entities are all of the entities that have this render component right now. And so that's being registered inside of game.cpp, and we're still kind of figuring out how we want to set this stuff up. So we have a register system and associate, and so I can look at that in a moment, but we made it so it just tracks all of the entities with the render component, and then we'll figure out if they actually are on screen. And if they are, then we push them onto their respective render layer, and then what is that? Right. Render layer, and then we go through all the render layers and tell the render system that we have this render layer. And then later, when the render system is rendering all of these layers, it will call this draw entities and we'll get the layer that it's drawing. And at that point, we will actually draw or queue up to draw the entities within that layer. And so that's how that's working. As far as like systems go, system.cpp, let's try to find that. Oh, you know what? I think we only have a header for system right now. Right. So it's really simple. We'll probably expand this a little bit more. I think there's going to be more data that we need to put in there. And then we have the system manager. And that's where we register systems. using a system ID and system, and then we associate components to the systems, and that allows us to actually track the component types within a system. So we could say something along the lines of like, oh, we have this inventory system. We want to know when a new inventory component is created, so it can be like registered or, you know, put into some container or initialized or whatever within the inventory system. And through all of this, getting everything set up, having down here, we actually have an entity being created and initialized, and this is some data that we still need to kind of try to figure out how to automate to some degree. We have it, so we have some UI rendering, but we also have our little pudding that we're creating right here, and it's being rendered, and that is in part thanks to Andrew fixing some silly little issue that I had introduced. So yeah, that's pretty much all the progress that we made for day 4. We're going to keep pushing on this, trying to pull in the various systems that I had developed for Project Dig and updating them to be a component-based system, or, you know, support that. A lot of it is mostly dealing with migrating the data being stored from a world component over into the system itself. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you have any feedback, I welcome it. I know these videos are very rough. It's because I don't really have time to edit them, but maybe one day I'll figure that all out. So in the meantime, I appreciate your patience, and I will see you all tomorrow. Thanks for watching.